This is Bill Maher, an American comedian known for his political satire and socio-political commentary. He has invited a small panelist, predominantly white, and a Tony Award-winning actor, Mr. Wendell, a black man, for the real-time show.
But I think the elephant in the room, or maybe the country, is that when we see these players, and the NFL is mostly a black league, who violate these laws, you mostly see black faces.
The conversation is about to quickly shift to violence in America. I want you to note how Mr. Bill Maher states the obvious. White Americans see violence as a black thing. Here, he continues to use the National Football League players as examples.
You see Ray Rice, black guy hit his wife. Ooh, Wendell Peterson, black guy hit his kid. Michael Vick, black guy hit his dog. And I think a lot of white America says, you know what, violence is a black thing.
The former US President Barack Obama once said, the black community was not naive to the fact that African American young men were disproportionately involved in the criminal justice system. And not to make excuses for that, black folks also understood that some violence in the black neighborhoods came from a very violent past.
Don't let this white man tell you that violence is wrong. Every damn thing that he got it by being violent. People, robbing and murder. He's doing it as we speak. And then he has the nerve to come and tell us that violence and hatred won't get it.
The existentialist philosophers talk about the executioner-victim relationship that is always prevalent in most of the world today, especially the non-white world, where they're fighting for their liberation. He says there are executioners and there are victims. The executioners are self-imposed. The victims begin to fight and agitate for their liberation. They use all type of means to get their liberation. The revolutionary philosopher Frantz Fanon says that what happens is that the victim begins to agitate. He uses all types of means against his executioner in fighting for a position of equality. After he tries a number of means and they do not work, he then begins to imitate the means by which his executioner kept him down. That is usually through force and violence. He says, and then they begin to use it against them, breaking the one taboo that they've never been able to break, hitting back against their executioners, so that you ought not to be upset. If we are violent, the United States taught us very well how to be violent.
So, keeping all this in mind, Wendell then waits for his turn, knowing very well he's sitting in the panel among white men and women. He then goes for the jugular.
And I think racism has moved to the place in America where if you don't see context, that makes you a racist.
Right.
Well, one of these things is not like the other. As I look at this panel. But you have to realize that, yes, the involvement of violence in black folks comes from that long history that the president was talking about, that we have to remember that we learned from some of the best. They had some white boys came over here that did the first beheadings in Point Coupee, Louisiana, where I'm from. Slave insurrection, that was the way you dealt with it. Tuskegee syphilis incident. We're going to see how black men die if they have syphilis, but we pretend we treat them with penicillin, and we're just going to watch the pathology of how they die. Now, that wasn't back 200 years ago. That was 1930 to 1974. We're talking about giving these wonderful blankets to the Native Americans infected with smallpox as they walked on that trail of tears just to see how they die and to eliminate their population so we can take all of that land. So the violence that is in America has come from a very learned position that was brought here by some Caucasian folks. All right? So now, when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to the NFL, you have black men who have taken advantage of this opportunity to go there. So for every 1, 2, or 3 that may have been in the news because of violence, there are another 2,000 that deport themselves as gentlemen, as husbands, as fathers, and as great professionals. So we must remember them also.
Okay.
So, but you know, but yes, people are responding to that. They see that image of that black man. You know, one of the MacArthur Foundation fellows that just won is a psychologist, Jennifer Eberhardt from Stanford, who deals with racial messaging and inequalities that people is either learned or subconscious, that when you see me in a certain situation, you think violence. If they see you in a certain situation, people don't see violence. So the image of the black man being violent has been perpetuated for a long time.
Bill Maher continues to pin violence on black men when he asks why black parents tend to hit their children as a form of discipline.
What about
one tape.
kid spanking and kid beating? That seems like something, I mean, we all know every black comedian ever has done even Bill Cosby did a routine about the beating start tonight.
Well, the mythology of the black family and the spanking, and, you know, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. We all carry that. I got spanked by my father. But, you know, whatever side of the argument you fall on when it comes to corporal punishment, whether you believe in it or you believe in timeouts, you can abuse either. You know, I mean, you can put a kid in a room for 3 days with no water or food and call that a timeout, but that's abuse. So if you go across the line, if you cross a line that goes into child abuse, it's child abuse no matter what. Corporal punishment, if you believe it or not, is ultimately people are trying to discipline their child and get them to change their behavior. But we have psychologists that also tell us that any sort of violence is going to infect or, you know, interject into that child's head, you know, behavior issues that are going to deal with aggression and all of that. So it's not a black thing. White people beat their kids too.
Absolutely.
I see them in the wall.
Well,
Absolutely.